What is going on with Aaron Rodgers? Daily Mail caught a picture of him on the beach wearing his headphones, looking out at the ocean. I'm assuming that was the Pacific Ocean. I'm assuming he was in Maui there. As he's weighing his options and where he's going to land next.
So what? Yeah. So all right, that's because I got a lot of questions. My first one, because you're reporting, you crushed it. You said the Minnesota Vikings are still potentially. You were the one and the only one that had it. Potentially looking at a reunion, not a reunion, but a signing of Aaron Rodgers. Are the Giants still in it? Are the Steelers still in it? And what about the Vikings?
Yeah, let's unpack this. All right. So right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New York Giants have discussed a contract and what that would look like in terms of money structure with Aaron Rodgers' camp. Okay, so they know what's on the table. They know which team is willing to do what and pay which number. And he has told them, or at least his representation has shared with both teams, that he will be making decisions soon. There are some who even say that his camp has said it's going to be the Steelers. Nobody in Pittsburgh believes that, though. Nobody has said anything official has come through at this moment when we're recording the show on Thursday afternoon. So the Giants are waiting. The Pittsburgh Steelers are waiting. And then while all of this is happening, the Minnesota Vikings are having meetings and conversations about what this would look like because they've got a lot of hurdles here. This is not an easy decision at all if you're the Minnesota Vikings from ownership down. What do you do here? You just let Sam Darnold go, right? You made that decision as an organization that we are going to stick with J.J. McCarthy as our starter. They tried to retain Daniel Jones. They did not want to pay him the kind of money that we saw him get with the Colts. Thinking, okay, now we got to go get a veteran quarterback. Who's out there? Well, Aaron Rodgers is out there, but Aaron Rodgers is probably going to cost some. Aaron Rodgers is a future Hall of Fame quarterback. And there are many people with the Minnesota Vikings, as well as the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Giants, of course, who still think he can play at a really high level. So with that, what do you do? What do you think is holding them back right now?
Well, so easily, without question, if Aaron Rodgers can go to the Minnesota Vikings, he should go to the Minnesota Vikings. Him paired up with Kevin O'Connell, obviously one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in football, and Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson. They just re-signed Aaron Jones. They have Jordan Addison. They have a very good defense. They are easily the best team out there for him. And I think that's probably because people are saying, hey, why is this taking so long with Aaron Rodgers? Why is he waiting? Because I don't think he wants to go to the Steelers. I don't think he wants to go to the Giants, even if they have offers out. He wants to win, and he wants to make good on what looked bad in New York. So if you're Aaron Rodgers, I would want to go there. Now, if you're the Minnesota Vikings, there is a difficult decision to be made. Because, like you said, the key factor in all this, I don't think they would be discussing this if they had gotten Daniel Jones back. Because I do think Kevin O'Connell felt really good about how Daniel Jones possibly could be in a competition with J.J. McCarthy. Is J.J. McCarthy ready physically? Is he ready mentally? I don't know. And only the people in that building know. And another thing, if you bring a guy like Aaron Rodgers in, not only could it possibly hurt the growth of J.J. McCarthy and hurt his confidence, like, oh, this team didn't believe in me. That's just a real factor. And two, you have to think about the distractions, right, wrong, and different, that Aaron Rodgers will bring to the Minnesota Vikings. If Aaron Rodgers signs with the Minnesota Vikings, right then and there, they become one of the most popular teams to talk about every single day. You're going to see him on Pat McAfee still. You're going to see him on all this. Kevin O'Connell seems to have a really good pulse on his organization. He's done it with Kirk Cousins. He's done it with the Sam Darnold that nobody believed in. He could do it with J.J. McCarthy, but is J.J. McCarthy ready? That's what I'm taking from all this.
Yeah, and I think there's layers to this, and stuff we're talking about here is probably being discussed internally. Let's just start with probably the most important person in this conversation, which is actually J.J. McCarthy, because where they drafted him, what they did to get him, and the belief that he's the future, and the confidence that they have that he's the guy, right? He obviously, unfortunately, gets injured, and then Sam Darnold takes over and has tons of success. How did that affect JJ's growth? How did that affect his overall confidence? Granted, we know that Sam wound up, ending on a bad note, but there was a time there where there were some questions of, well, should the Vikings keep Sam Darnold now? he is the one that could probably take them to the Super Bowl at some point here at this level of play that he was showing, right? So you have that. Then you have the fact that he's coming off injury. Where is he in this rehab? Kevin O'Connell told me on the red carpet at the night of the honors at the Super Bowl that he was ahead of schedule and he's doing well. Then at the combine, I got the sense that maybe it wasn't that optimistic. So we just got to see where he lands. And like you said, they know where he's at medically. Mentally, where is he at now, knowing that they are out here trying to bring in some competition, right? Knowing
it's not just competition; it's a future Hall of Famer. Like that's another thing. You know,
I didn't even get to Aaron's part of this, right? So that's JJ. This is like the JJ scenario situation. Let's move JJ to the side. Now we got Aaron Rodgers. You've got a soon-to-be 42-year-old coming off an Achilles injury. He had the season he did. They think he can still play. He comes with a lot. In the locker room, I feel like it's 50-50. You find some guys that love him. You find some guys that are just okay on him. They all respect who he is as a player. I think we all can agree he's one of the best quarterbacks that we've seen in our lifetime play the game. But he comes with a lot. He's going to talk outside the building. He's going to do media. He's going to do things that he wants to do. So how do you have success with Aaron Rodgers on your team? Well, and this is stuff that I think that the New York Jets learned over the seasons of, okay, there needs to be somebody that's the bad cop, so to speak. Somebody that is going to hold him accountable. Someone that's going to say, hey, Aaron, this is Kevin O'Connell's team. This is the Minnesota Vikings. You are just the quarterback here. We respect you. We think you're great. But we're a team. Because when you think about the Vikings, as good as JJ is, Justin Jefferson, I don't want to confuse the JJs, and JJ is good as well, but as good as Justin Jefferson is, you sometimes forget he's on that team. He's such a star, yet you think Vikings, don't you just think total? You just think of the, and that's, I think that's such a compliment to them because it is about team there. And then you look at what they did in free agency just now on their lines, offensively, defensively, right?
Yeah, I mean, they won free agency for me. Like they bolstered their trenches on both sides of the ball. They made amazing moves. They got secondary help. They re-signed Harrison Smith. I think it was awesome what they did.
And just more specifically, right? Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen from Washington joined them. Will Fries, Ryan Kelly, Isaiah Rodgers.
They spent a lot of money.
They spent a lot of money on top of the fact that they re-signed Harrison Smith, as you mentioned, Theo Jackson, Aaron Jones, Byron Murphy. These guys. You thought this defense was good with what Brian Flores was doing? He took a bunch of decent defenders here and essentially was pretty exotic with some of the stuff he would do to try to confuse quarterbacks. Now he actually has a pass rush. Now he actually has guys that can stop the run. On top of the fact that you have an offense with returning of Aaron Jones and the guys that are there. So they are built to win this. You need to now place the quarterback in this. And if J.J. McCarthy isn't going to be physically ready by the time the season starts, if that's the case, why not use Aaron Rodgers to come in and perform with these type of players?
My thing is, Dianna, is we've never seen Aaron Rodgers do what you're saying that the Minnesota Vikings want him to do. Say that it's someone else's team and just be a plug-and-piece guy. Because in Green Bay, he wasn't like that. In New York, he wasn't like that. This is the first time he's ever been a free agent. He gets to choose where he goes. And this is my question. We don't know because we don't talk to Aaron. But is he okay with that for the last year of his career? Is he okay with it not being Aaron's team? Is it okay with him not being the face of the franchise and all this stuff? Obviously, there's going to get some attention. I think that's one thing that we all need to keep in mind is he's never showed that. Like how good he's been, he's always wanted to be the face of that franchise, and rightfully so. He's a future Hall of Famer, and I think that's what we need to pay attention going forward. But secondly, you mentioned it about the Vikings not being able to go to that level or being okay to go to the level with Daniel Jones of what the Colts paid, which is $14 million. If Aaron Rodgers does go, are they capped at that number or are they willing to go above that number because of the type of player Aaron Rodgers is? Because that's important.
And those have got to be part of the discussions with ownership of, we let Sam walk. We weren't going to pay him 30, 35 million. No way. right? We weren't willing to pay Daniel Jones, 14?
Yeah.
Are they willing to do that? Is Aaron Rodgers willing to maybe take less to play
How
under
much
Kevin
less,
O'Connell?
though? Because if you're talking in the 20s with Aaron, that becomes a point where I know it's not about money, but it's a little bit about respect for him, right?
Oh, yeah. I've had people in the league say, you're nuts if you think he's going to take some big discount. There's no way.
I was going to say in the 30s would make sense. Like, that makes sense. Like, that's respectable enough. And the
but what does it look like years-wise?
Yeah, well, it's a 1 year.
It's a 1 year?
Yeah, I just don't think there's any way. It's
Yeah. Well,
maybe it's an inflated 2 year that's really a 1 year. You know what I mean? Like,
I think bottom line, if you're going to bring Aaron Rodgers in there, he has to respect the head coach. And when you think Minnesota, when you think the Pittsburgh Steelers, there's not even like a pause, right? It's of course. It's Mike Tomlin.
O'Connell.
It's Kevin O'Connell. In regards to Minnesota, and I was just thinking about this, what about the fact that Kevin O'Connell played his position as a backup, though? Like, do you think that changes anything? Because it's like, hey, man, you did this, but
well,
I did this really
head
well.
Coach. Yeah, exactly.
You know
I
what I
don't
mean?
think that matters. I
Josh
think that
McCown's in there. Like, hey, dude, you did this, but I did this at a high
you
level.
don't really coach Rodgers. You just say, here's the plays you run and go make him cool. You know,
Okay,
that's sort of like Breeze at the end of his career. It's just like, just go out there and do some cool stuff.
What about guys around the league who constantly like to remind me that Aaron likes to just do what he wants at the line of scrimmage? Like, that's not Kevin. Kevin O'Connell's not going to.
Yeah, and I do think that's the tricky situation. I think Pittsburgh will probably let him do that because they're just trying to hit on a quarterback. I do not think that's why this is such a crazy decision and interesting conversation, because I don't think that Kevin O'Connell will let him do that. But at the same token, that's all that Aaron Rodgers has ever done. I think there would have to be a little bit of give and take. And it's like, my thing is, once things go a little bit bad, how are they going to react? Are they going to stay cool, calm, and collected? Like, at one point, if Aaron Rodgers isn't playing well, is playing like he was in the first 5 or 6 games of the Jets, do they bench him if he goes? Like, there's a lot of scenarios that can play. And I do think that Kevin O'Connell has built up a lot of equity where he could afford a season of not being great with Aaron Rodgers for some reason. If they make this mistake, like, it's not like going to affect his job, obviously. But then it's like, man, now you wait another year for J.J. McCarthy. It's such a fascinating piece of
and
the
look,
conversation.
we've seen situations like this before. In fact, it's so fitting that Brett Favre did this, right? He had success when he went to the Jets. Granted, he got hurt and it ended. But it made sense when Brett Favre went to New York in terms of that type, with that roster of just they had that thing built, plug and play and go. If he doesn't get hurt, who knows what would have happened? Yep. And then, of course, he finished his career with the Minnesota Vikings,
which was arguably his best year of his career. We played against him, Dianna, in the 2009 NFC Championship game. Like, he was a baller at that point. Like, he could follow the same footsteps as Favre, which is sort of crazy, I think.
So we spent a lot of time on the show criticizing Aaron Rodgers in New York. Yet I feel like the tone for both of us here, our takeaway is Minnesota needs to do this, because I think they need to do this. They need to sign Aaron Rodgers.
So I think we criticized Aaron Rodgers at times, or me, because he did go to the New York Jets. It didn't work out, but it was how it was laid out to him. Private jet, you can have whatever you want. You can be the GM. Look at the organization. It's dysfunctional. It's been dysfunctional for a long time. They've missed the playoffs, the Jets, 14 straight years. It's the longest drought in any major sports in America. Look at the Minnesota Vikings and look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, 2 of the more functional organizations. So this makes sense for me because of that.
Yeah. I feel like if I were to hand the Minnesota Vikings like a grocery list of things that they need to go get before Aaron gets there, it's the bad cop, boundaries, and good PR to deal with when he talks outside of the Minnesota Vikings space, right? Because Minnesota, they've got a fantastic communications group. They got great guys there, and they do a nice job of keeping everything right there in Minnesota. So they're gonna have fun with that if this does evolve, this continues, right? Thanks for tuning into Scoop City. If you want to hear more, make sure you like and subscribe. We drop our new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.